Today we are going to discuss the ways that you can do a wireframe render in Maya 2016. Now, a lot of tutorials online show how to do a wireframe render, but very few show this method in 2016. The transition between Maya 2015 and 16 had changed a lot of the items and where things were and the functionality of those items in that year's switch for software. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a ground plane, just something to put my file on, and I'm going to import a picture right here. That looks good, and I'm going to change my display to soften edge just so it's a nicer representation of what I have. I'm going to scale this down, hit focus. Let's apply a new material to this. So let's right click and let's apply a just a simple material, something like a Lambert. That looks good, and we'll make that Lambert white. And let's go ahead and apply maybe a mental ray material to the bottom floor. So let's go to our MIA material X, and let's do our white floor. Let's change our glossiness to 0.8 and our samples to 32. That will give us a nice white floor. The next step is I'm going to set up my HDRI dome. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my final gather settings as I were on, or have been able to on other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my default, enable default lighting. I'm going to also go into my final gather mode and open that up. And in addition, I'll create an image-based light with a texture that is white. And as we know from the previous lessons we've had, what we'll get with that is the following. Let's go ahead and render it. We should get a nice product render. All right, now I want to show the topology and the surface and the wireframe of this actual piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to enable wireframe. And this is a step-oriented process, so bear with me here. All right, let's start by grabbing the object we want to put wireframe on, and I want you to navigate to that object shader. So click on the shader itself. Then I want you to click on this top square. And these little squares, actually click on the bottom square, pardon me. These little squares will take you further and deeper in that shader. So you can see the bottom squares we're going to want to click on. There I want you to find the mental ray tab and the contours tab, and I want you to enable contour rendering. Now, once we have this rendering enabled, what we can do is we can shrink this color to black. This is going to be our wireframe color, and we're going to lower this to maybe 0.4 for the width of the lines that we're going to see, and we're going to have to go back and play with that a little bit. Now, if I were to render right now, you get a whole lot of nothing, and that's because you have to activate it in your render globals. So in our render globals, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our render settings and again make sure everything's set up, and we're going to go all the way to the configuration item. Now this item has been previously hidden in Maya 2016, so what you're going to have to do is kind of find the tabs you need by clicking the show advanced settings. So click on that. Contours will show up, and then you can enable contour rendering. Oversample, I typically sample that up to 3, which is kind of nice. It gives me a good kind of basis for the color. And then I open the draw by property item, and I can go ahead and show different ways I can do wireframe. I like to use all around polyfaces. It's a good one to do. And then we have some other shaders and some other things that we can play with. We can also hide the source if we wish to do that. But typically the oversample going up, the all around polyfaces checked. Now, if we've done everything right, which we haven't because I know there's one step I'm missing, but I want to show you, we go to render it and still nothing. So the reason is because this is considered a legacy. This is considered an old way to do things. Even though they didn't really put brand new ways to do things in, there are other ways to do this. But one last step we have to do is go to our quality tab, and then we're going to go down to legacy options, And here where it says sampling mode, from unified sampling, change that to legacy sampling mode. That's a quick switch, and that's all you need to do is change that. And let's let it run through, and let's see what we have now. So we're going to let this run through its whole process, and voila, you have a wireframe. Pretty neat, right? So you can see that we have, the wireframes are, this isn't the best model to kind of display a wireframe on, but you can definitely see it. Now what I can do is I can go back by hitting my bottom button back to that shading group, and maybe we can thicken these lines up a little bit. Maybe they're not, they're too thin for us to see. Again, this is a post process, that's why you see it pop in at the end, but there, now you have a wireframe render. It is not showing in your reflection, so just be aware of that. If that's something that you want to fix, that may be something you need to do in post-production. But that is the down and dirty quick way to do a wireframe render.